Welcome back, scholars, to our Digital Academy. I am Professor Spark. Whether we are turning the pages of a timeless novel, our mission remains the same. Will today's sweep us into the concert hall? Let's find out together.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the chilling backstory and the absolute brilliant musicality of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's final, unfinished masterpiece, the Requiem in D minor. We're going to look at way more than just the notes on the page here. We're diving into the incredible, almost mythic circumstances surrounding its creation. Seriously, this is a story of deception, of profound human tragedy, and of sheer musical genius operating right at the absolute edge of mortality. So, to really understand this work, we've got to start with its theatrical origins. Think about it. What happens when a dying genius is tricked into writing his own eulogy? It sounds exactly like a Hollywood thriller, right? But believe it or not, it's the very real foundation of the Requiem in D minor. And honestly, those circumstances alone charge this music with a level of meaning that goes way, way beyond your standard classical commission. Okay, let's jump right into section 1, a commission built on lies, the 1791 deception. Picture this. It's 1791. A wealthy aristocrat named Count Franz von Walsegg secretly commissions the Requiem. Now, his grand plan? He wanted to pass it off as his own composition in memory of his late wife. Pretty sneaky. But this theft took a deeply tragic turn when Mozart fell seriously ill during the writing process. It got so bad that he reportedly came to believe he was actually composing his own Requiem. And tragically, he died, leaving the work unfinished. He managed to complete the introit and Kyrie and drafted a good chunk of the sequence and offertory, but the rest, it was either merely sketched out or just completely absent. So it ultimately fell to his student Franz Xaver Süssmayr to finish the score using Mozart's sketches while throwing in his own additions. Walsegg, in his selfish little scheme to steal some glory, literally forced a dying Mozart to write his own musical epitaph without even knowing it. Just take a second to consider the mythic weight of that reality. We're talking about a masterpiece finished by another hand for a commission built on a total lie composed by a dying man. I mean, wow. That history transforms what could have just been a standard liturgical work into one of the most emotionally potent pieces in the entire Western musical canon. It became this profound meditation on death, judgment, and mercy, born out of a truly unbelievable set of circumstances. All right, moving on to section 2, confronting death through music. Right from the very opening of the piece, the introitus, which translates to eternal rest, we hear something just incredibly profound. Mozart creates this somber, really heavy atmosphere using a descending line played by the bassoon and basset horn. And when you listen to it, it doesn't sound like rigid, formal church music at all. It sounds like raw, personal grief. It is the sound of a composer who is heavily burdened, staring down his own end, and just pouring that very real, very present emotion directly onto the staff paper. Now, the tragedy truly peaks in the Lacrimosa. This is it. This is the very last music Mozart is thought to have written before his death. He managed to get through just 8 bars before breaking off entirely. But let me tell you, those 8 bars are an absolute masterclass in emotional expression. It features this almost unbearably direct, simple, sighing melodic figure, and underneath that you have this throbbing string accompaniment. It rises to this huge climax, and then it just simply falls away. It's literally an unfinished cry. The actual physical manuscript just stops, right mid-thought. Knowing that Mozart's pen fell silent at this exact spot, well, it gives the music an unmatched rawness that is rarely, if ever, seen in music history. It is the literal sound of a genius silenced mid-sentence. When you hear it, you aren't just listening to a composition anymore. You are listening to the exact moment a master ran out of time. Let's shift gears to section 3, Judgment and Mercy, Humanism in Liturgy. So there is this incredibly stark contrast right at the heart of this work. On one hand, you have the Dies Irae, the Day of Wrath. This unleashes some of the most violent orchestral writing you will find anywhere in 18th century music. We're talking pounding rhythms, rushing string figures, and these full-throated choral outbursts that perfectly capture the sheer terror of divine judgment. But here's the thing. Mozart doesn't just leave us stranded in a state of condemnation. Immediately following all that chaos is the Recordare, which shifts into this gentler, much more intimate register. We hear solo voices in close harmony, pleading for mercy and compassion rather than just fearing wrath. It beautifully reflects this humanist strand within the Catholic tradition, where judgment is tempered by compassion, and sin is met with the hope of redemption instead of just pure, unadulterated fear. And that tension is brilliantly illustrated in the Confutatus. Mozart basically stages a moral drama directly within a single piece of music. You listen for the damned, and you hear this harsh, aggressive, chromatic music. But then, almost instantly, it alternates to the redeemed. Soft, consonant, beautifully angelic women's voices. Mozart uses pure musical contrast to stage the tension of judgment itself. He doesn't need to write a single word of commentary because the notes are doing all the philosophical heavy lifting for him. Which brings us to Section 4. Bridging eras, classical to romantic. The Requiem really acts as a major hinge point in musical history, sitting right there at the twilight of the classical era and the dawn of Romanticism. On one hand, the piece reaches backward to its classical past through the fugal counterpoint in movements like the Kyrie and the Quamulum Abraha. You can definitely hear the heavy influence of composers like Bach and Handel, whom Mozart had actually been intensively studying in his final years. But at the exact same time, it rushes toward the Romantic future with just incredible expressive intensity. Its harmonic daring, like those intense diminished chords and the unstable chromatic movement in the Confutatus and Rex Tremendae, well, they point directly toward the much more turbulent, raw emotional language of the 19th century. It was written exactly at the moment when the Enlightenment's rational order was giving way to Romanticism's emotional directness. Now, if all of this has made you want to experience this mythic piece for yourself, and I absolutely encourage you to do so, I highly recommend checking out a widely praised, deeply moving full performance. Specifically, check out the version conducted by Bartosz Mikołowski, leading the Polish Sinfonia Juventus Orchestra and the Warsaw Philharmonic Choir. The musicians and vocalists bring this incredible history and raw emotion to life in a way that truly, truly honors the weight of the score. Because of its tragic unfinished ending, completed by another hand long after the composer was gone, the Requiem functions almost as a myth today. So I want to leave you with this thought to ponder. Does the true power of the Requiem lie in the masterful notes Mozart actually managed to finish? Or does it live in the haunting, abrupt silence he left behind when his pen stopped mid-thought? It's a question that completely changes how you hear the music. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the beautiful, tragic, and utterly fascinating myth of Mozart's Requiem. Keep learning, keep listening, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.